All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to unpack an ancient ritual from the time of the temple in Jerusalem. But honestly, it's so much more than that. We're really looking at a masterclass in legal interpretation, a kind of spiritual genius that is just absolutely brilliant. So, first things first, what exactly are we talking about? It's called the Omer offering. Basically, on the day right after the first day of Passover, a special measure of the very first barley harvest was brought to the temple. Think of it as this big national event that officially kicked off the entire agricultural season for everyone. Now, with any really important ritual, there's always the perfect way to do it. The ideal scenario here, the absolute gold standard, was to go out into the fields at night, under the stars, find these beautiful, standing stalks of fresh, moist barley, and cut it right then and there. That was it, the mitzvah in its purest, most perfect form. But let's be real, life is rarely that perfect, right? I mean, what if there was a drought and the only grain you could find was dry? Or what if you couldn't find a standing field and all the barley was already cut and tied up into sheaves? Or what if you just couldn't get it all done at night? Do you just call the whole thing off? This was the big problem the sages had to figure out. And they found their answer, their master key, really, in a verse from Leviticus. And believe it or not, it all comes down to the repetition of a super simple phrase, you shall bring. Now, on the surface, it just looks like a command, but in their hands, it becomes this incredibly powerful tool for flexibility. See, they figured that the Torah repeating this command had to mean something deeper. It's not just saying what you should do, it's emphasizing that it must be done. That focus on you shall bring suggests that the act of bringing the offering itself is the part you absolutely cannot compromise on. But the details around it, well, that's where things start to get really interesting. Okay, so let's see how this actually works. The ideal, like we said, is to cut from standing grain. But what if you can't find any? The Talmud asks, okay, so how do we know it's fine to use grain that's already been harvested? And the answer comes right back. The verse says you shall bring, which implies you bring it from wherever you can possibly find it. All right, next case. The ideal is fresh, moist barley. But what if all you've got is dry grain? Is the whole offering invalid? Not at all. The sages pull out the exact same phrase for permission. You shall bring means you bring what you have, even if it's not in that perfect fresh-off-the-stalk condition. And this one really shows the pattern. The mitzvah is to reap the barley at night. But let's say, for whatever reason, it gets done during the day. Is it still good? You bet it is. And the source for that permission? Yep, you guessed it. You shall bring. What's so cool about this is how the Talmud lays out the argument. For every one of these scenarios, it asks the exact same question. From where is this derived? And it gives the same powerful, rock-solid answer every single time. The verse states, you shall bring. It becomes this constant refrain, hammering home the core principle. So up to this point, we've been dealing with pretty practical agricultural problems. But the sages, they didn't stop there. They pushed this interpretation to its absolute limit, applying it to situations that feel way more serious than just whether the grain is a little dry. And this is where it gets really dramatic. Could this one simple phrase, you shall bring, actually be powerful enough to set aside other fundamental laws of the Torah? I mean, laws that are normally considered completely off limits? And the answer is a shocking, resounding yes. The Talmud teaches that this Omer offering is so critical, it even overrides the prohibitions of Shabbat. That means the work of harvesting, which is normally forbidden, is actually permitted for this one crucial task. And it gets even crazier. It even overrides the laws of ritual purity if the community finds itself in that state. The point is, no matter what, the offering has to happen. The logic here is just profound. You shall bring gets read as an absolute, unconditional command. It means bring it in any manner you can and from anywhere you can get it. It means bring it even on Shabbat and bring it even if you're in a state of ritual impurity. Why? Because the fulfillment of this public, communal offering is just that important. So let's just step back and look at this chart. It really brings it all together. You've got 5 totally different scenarios, 5 real-world problems that could totally derail the ritual. And for every single one of them, from the condition of the barley to the day of the week to the spiritual state of the people, there is one single, elegant source of permission, that simple command, you shall bring. It's an incredible piece of legal and spiritual engineering. And it is so crucial to understand this point. This isn't about finding clever loopholes to get out of doing something. It is the exact opposite.
This is a system designed to make sure that a foundational, community-wide ritual can always happen, no matter what life throws at you. It's built not for a perfect world, but for the messy, unpredictable one we all actually live in.
So it leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. When we look at the rules and systems in our own lives, whether it's at work, in our communities, or just our own personal codes, do we only see rigid restrictions, or if we look a little closer, could we find our own version of you shall bring? That core principle that gives us the wisdom and the flexibility to make sure the truly essential things always get done.